If your home constantly feels like a project that you can't get ahead of and the physical and the mental clutter are driving you insane, these 5 minimalist rules, or actually minimalist-inspired systems, changed that for me. I've always thought that minimalism was like 3 pairs of shoes and everything white, and that's just not how I roll. But over time, I've learned to use these principles as tools, not to just declutter, but to simplify how I run our home. Today, I'm sharing with you these 5 minimalist rules that both simplify how I run our home and made room for more joy. Let's start with the one that changed how I handle clutter before I do any kind of decluttering. This one tiny shift might save you more time than anything else I share today. We all know what it's like to shuffle the piles around. I have been guilty of this more times than I can count. But once I started applying something that I do with cleaning to decluttering, it's made a huge difference. Whenever I'm going from one room to the next, usually I like to see what can go with me. And then I have this rule in my mind most of the time where I say, touch it once. So rather than picking it up and putting it somewhere else, I will just go ahead and put it away because that takes a whole lot less energy than to have to touch it twice. And then it's just taking up space in whatever room you're in and it makes it look more messy. So all that to say, that is one principle that I've applied to tidying. This is also a principle I apply to clutter. Touch it one time. Don't let yourself shuffle the piles around. If you are in decluttering mode, or if you are even decluttering 5 minutes, one drawer, don't fall into the temptation of just moving it around to another pile, because that's not actually decluttering. So if you're in that mode and you pick it up, go ahead and decide, are you going to keep it? Are you going to toss it? Or are you going to donate it? If you're going to keep it, it needs to have a home. If it doesn't have a home, you got to toss it or donate it. Or make a home for it if that means you throw away something else so that it has a spot on the shelf or whatever. But go ahead and decide what you're going to do whenever you pick the thing up and don't just move it around. This habit eliminates rework and it keeps surfaces clear. It just overall will make life a lot easier, even if it takes a little bit of intentionality on the front end. If clutter is just one thing in your home that's keeping things heavy and making it difficult, my free masterclass will help you tackle that and the rest. In it, I'm going to teach you to layer systems and routines that help you manage your home and almost make it run on autopilot, so that you're not just tidying all the time and spinning your wheels, but you're actually getting stuff done and you're making room for more joy. You can grab that down below. It's completely free. But back to it. Even if you get really good at managing the clutter that's in your home, you're going to be constantly spinning your wheels if new stuff keeps pouring in. Trying to get a handle on the clutter isn't just about getting rid of things. It's just as crucial to be mindful about what's coming in the door. I haven't always been good at this, but I'm about to tell you something that gives such a vivid picture to me of why this matters. I had a dear friend who moved here from Congo as a refugee several years ago. She's a single mom of 4 at the time. After spending her whole life in a refugee camp, she just wasn't used to having a lot of stuff to have to handle and manage and organize and all of that. When she first got here, people were incredibly generous and gave her and her children exactly what they needed. They gave her clothes, they gave them toys, shoes, furniture. It was wonderful. But she honestly had no idea what to do with it all. I'll never forget walking into her apartment one day to help her organize some of these things. She let me in with a great smile. I stepped into the back bedroom and there were mounds of clothes, jackets, shoes, and just random things piled across every surface. It had gotten to the point where her children didn't even have a place to sleep. And that was such a clear picture for me. Even if you declutter every closet, every surface, every drawer, none of it matters if new things are constantly streaming in. You'll always feel like you're chasing clutter rather than getting ahead of it. So rule number 2 is just having an incoming filter. One principle that I try to keep in mind is the one in, one out rule. So that especially applies to things like toys or shoes. It's always a good idea to ask yourself where it's going to live before you buy it. If you think through that a little bit, it really helps you sift through what do you actually need and what do you actually want to bring into your home, because whatever you bring into your home is something that you are going to ultimately have to manage. And to be honest, when less comes in, it is just a whole lot easier to keep a tidy home. So to this point, another really great thing to think through is gifts and family giving. With 5 children, that means multiple birthdays, holidays, and then multiple family members who are wonderfully generous and love to live on our kiddos. Those gifts can pile up. out the wazoo and get really overwhelming really quick. And so, again, whatever comes in, mom has to manage, and it just can get a little chaotic. So, what we've learned to do is to be really specific about what we ask for. So, instead of accumulating more things, we just get to have contributions to a family experience where we not only are avoiding clutter, but we're building into a strong family culture. So, that's one idea. Another thing that you could do is request books, really good, solid books that are classics or time tested and really wonderful, valuable books or series, things like that. Another thing that you could ask for are add-ons. I like to call them add-ons because it's just basically something that you can add on to an existing collection. So, an example could be Legos or trains. And then the last thing that we usually ask for are consumables or skill-based gifts. So anything crafty or something that contributes to a skill that they're building, like crochet or embroidery or carpentry, things like that. That's another idea that we've used to help filter what's coming into our house while still really blessing our children in our home. By the way, if we haven't met yet, I'm Lauren. I'm a homeschooling mom of 5, and here on this channel, I help Christian homemakers build systems and routines that actually fit your life and your home. If that sounds like something you need, go ahead and like and subscribe so that you don't miss my weekly videos. But back to it. Even if you limit what comes in, the storage spaces that you already have can really quietly fill up with things that you think you need but actually don't. And that's where rule number 3 comes in, which is the only what you love filter. Just because it's free, useful, or could be used someday does not mean you actually need to keep it. So we are a single income family with 5 small children, like I said, which means that we really have to watch what we spend. Money doesn't grow on trees, and so I don't like to waste. So we do keep hand-me-downs, and I do keep gift bags and tissue paper, and I've kind of gone back and forth on that one. So I'm all about trying to save money and keeping what I know that I'm going to use so that I don't have to buy it again. But storage space is also very valuable. So with hand-me-downs, I used to keep, oh, this is crazy. I used to keep all ages, all seasons, both genders. So basically, I had tubs and tubs and tubs of clothes. And as the kids got older, I realized I literally don't have the storage space to keep all of these clothes. So I had to think through how to both save money, but also save storage space, because if I'm saying yes to all of these clothes, that means I'm saying no to other things that I might need to store. So that's where the only what you love filter comes in. And that has really helped us with all of our clothes. I still love hand-me-downs, saves a lot of money every single year, but I only keep the clothing items that I love. So I think that's a really good principle to have in general, not just with hand-me-downs, but other things. Don't save what you dislike just in case you might need it later. If you don't like it now, you probably won't like it later. So free yourself from guilt storage. You can pass it on to somebody who will use it and will really enjoy it, whether that be a friend or family or a thrift store. In general, just remember that your storage space is very valuable, so guard it carefully. Speaking of children's clothing and toys and, etc., I found a little hack that involves children in this process, or at least in part of it, so that you don't have to carry the weight yourself. And that leads us to number 4, which is the family culture principle. Systems like this are a lot easier and a lot more joyful whenever you are working together and you're not doing it by yourself. As a mom, especially if you've got little ones, a lot of times it is a lot easier just to do it all yourself. But efficiency doesn't always build into relationships. And I'm not saying decluttering is going to build relationships in a groundbreaking way, but whenever you guys can do some of these projects together, it is an opportunity to have a joyful time together, to work together, because children really love being next to mommy helping. And really, this little hack is actually helpful to mom, because I don't know about you, I don't love going through their closets. If they are 5 and up, I think that they are fully capable of helping with some of this process. I know that's been true for me. The hack that I talked about is basically using incentive to help them want to get rid of a lot of the junk and take that off of your plate. So what we did is basically give each child a garbage bag, and if they filled their garbage bag all the way to the top with items and stuff that they wanted to give away to somebody else, then they got a prize of some kind. So example, we took a trip to our children's museum once everybody got their garbage bags filled up, or we can take them to ice cream, just something like that. It's something that just incentivizes them to get rid of the things that they don't need. It's all about the power of a greater affection. I don't know if you've heard that quote from Jonathan Edwards, but if you hold up something more alluring to them, then it helps them get rid of some of these lesser alluring things that are also less, not very alluring to you because you have to see the junk. This is one example of how you can make decluttering a regular family habit, even if you're not doing it every week. Maybe you do it twice a year or quarterly or whatever. But doing it all together can really make it fun and take some of the burden off of you. To this point, though, if you choose to do what I did, I would make sure that you're reviewing the things that they are donating to later avoid regrets, especially if it's like an item that's more prized or it's part of a collection. Maybe they're having a moment where they're not seeing how much the thing means to them. Maybe they've had it for a really long time. Anyway, just make sure you're reviewing the items so that they're not giving away something that you don't want them to give away. But benefits of doing things like this together are multifaceted. Not only are you building into the family culture because you're doing things together, you try to make it fun and lighthearted. Not only is that happening, but you're also building their character. They are growing in generosity as they're taking their things and they're giving it away to somebody else who might not be as fortunate as them. It is more blessed to give than it is to receive. It's also helping them take ownership of the things that they have in their room. And overall, it really reduces the battles because they are the ones that are getting rid of the things and not you. So this can be a great blessing to you and your family in more ways than one. But here's a little bit of a spin. The hardest clutter to manage and the clutter that can really crowd out joy in the home often isn't in your closets, it's in your calendar. And that leads us to number 5, which is the less is more principle. Sometimes the most powerful form of simplifying is learning to say no to what is good so that you can say yes to what is best. And that absolutely applies to objects in the home, but it very much applies to the calendar. And that's what I want to talk about right now. I have not always been good at this. In fact, several years ago when we moved, we were shifting churches, we were shifting friend groups just because we were moving across town. And that requires a lot of time to get to know people. We wanted to get to know families and friends. And so we said yes to a lot of hosting. We said yes to a lot of social calendar things and just way overloaded our calendar as a young family. And for us, that was just not good timing. And that was not a wise way to spend our time. We had children who were not sleeping very well a lot of the times because they were going to bed late consistently, which naturally leads to bad attitudes for everybody the next day. It means we're not connecting as much as a family or as a couple in our marriage because we're constantly going all the time. So when your calendar is so packed full that you have no margin to even connect as a family, that's just not helpful. And that is definitely a thief of joy and simplicity in the home. So one general principle that I like to say again is less is more. And one way to really build margin into your calendar is to think through what your priorities are. Just think through even your top 3. For me, mine is the Lord, my relationship with the Lord, my relationship with my husband, our marriage, and our family overall. I want our rhythms to reflect that. I want to make sure that my priorities are in order and in line. And if they're not, something needs to change. If our calendar is so filled that we're not connecting in our marriage, or my children are not properly being tended to or trained, then something needs to change. So think through what your priorities are and make sure that your rhythms at home reflect that. And then just be really selective about the commitments you make. Make sure that nothing in your calendar is crowding out the commitments and the rhythms in your home that reflect your priorities. If you leave room in your days and in your weeks, ultimately, that's a great blessing to you and to your family because you're leaving room for life to happen. You're leaving room for you guys to connect. And overall, it provides a nurturing environment for your family to grow and thrive and connect in. This is absolutely not mutually exclusive with hospitality. I love hospitality. We love hosting in our home. And it is a biblical mandate to show hospitality to people outside of the home. But first, we ought to show hospitality to our own family members. And a big part of that is leaving margin in our calendars and leaving space for us to connect as married couples and to connect as families. And naturally, when you have a really healthy family environment that's being nurtured and sewn into intentionally, that is a whole lot more pleasant of an experience to come into as an outsider anyway. So overall, when you've got less stuff, both in your closets and on your calendar, that leaves room for a more simplified home and more joy. If you're ready to go deeper, beyond decluttering, and actually build systems and routines that carry some of this weight for you, I would love to invite you to my free masterclass. It's where we start layering routines and systems that make home life a whole lot more manageable and, again, leave room for joy. You can grab that down below. I hope you found value in this video today. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.